In this section, we will compare the specifications of the RTX 4060 Ti and the RX. These are two of the most popular mid-range graphics cards on the market, and they offer different features and performance levels. The RTX 4060 Ti is based on the AD104 GPU, which is a cut-down version of the AD102 GPU that powers the RTX 4080 and RTX. The AD104 GPU has 40 streaming multiprocessors, SMs, each with 128 CUDA cores, for a total of 5,120 CUDA cores. The RTX 4060 Ti also has 160 tensor cores and 80 ray tracing cores, which enable advanced features such as DLSS and ray tracing. The RX 7600 is based on the Navi 33 GPU, which is a new chip that AMD introduced with the RX 7000 series. The Navi 33 GPU has 40 compute units, CUs, each with 64 stream processors, SPs, for a total of 2,560 SPs. The RX 7600 also has 160 ray accelerators, which are dedicated hardware units for ray tracing. Both cards have 8 GB of memory, but they use different types of memory and have different memory bandwidths. The RTX 4060 Ti uses GDDR6X memory, which is a faster and more power-efficient variant of GDDR. The RTX 4060 Ti has a memory clock speed of 19 gigabits per second and a memory bus width of 256 bits, resulting in a memory bandwidth of 608 gigabytes per second. The RX 7600 uses GDDR6 memory, which is the same type of memory that the previous generation RX 6000 series used. The RX 7600 has a memory clock speed of 16 gigabits per second and a memory bus width of 256 bits, resulting in a memory bandwidth of 512 gigabytes per second. As you can see, the RTX 4060 Ti has more cores, more tensor cores, more ray tracing cores, faster memory, and higher memory bandwidth than the RX. However, these specifications do not tell the whole story. In the next section, we will see how these cards perform in various generic benchmarks. Let's take a look at how the RTX 4060 Ti and the RX 7600 compare in some generic benchmarks. These are synthetic tests that measure the graphics performance of the cards in different scenarios. They are not necessarily representative of real-world gaming performance, but they can give us some idea of the potential of each card. One of the most popular generic benchmarks is 3DMark, which has several subtests for different levels of graphics quality and resolution. In 3DMark Time Spy, which is a DirectX 12 test at 1440p resolution, the RTX 4060 Ti scores an average of 14,732 points, while the RX 7600 scores 11,598 points. This means that the RTX 4060 Ti is about 27% faster than the RX 7600 in this test. Another subtest of 3DMark is Firestrike Ultra, which is a DirectX 11 test at 4K resolution. This is a more demanding test that pushes the cards to their limits. In this test, the RX 7600 actually beats the RTX 4060 Ti by a small margin. The RX 7600 scores an average of 8,512 points, while the RTX 4060 Ti scores 8,398 points. This means that the RX 7600 is about 1.4% faster than the RTX 4060 Ti in this test. However, this is the only test where the RX 7600 has an edge over the RTX 4060 Ti. In other generic benchmarks, such as Speedway and Unigine Superposition, the RTX 4060 Ti dominates the RX 7600 by a large margin. In Speedway, which is a Vulkan test at 1080p resolution, the RTX 4060 Ti scores an average of 24,832 frames per second, FPS, while the RX 7600 scores only 15,248 frames per second. This means that the RTX 4060 Ti is a whopping 63% faster than the RX 7600 in this test. In Unigine Superposition, which is an OpenGL test at 1080p resolution with extreme settings, the RTX 4060 Ti scores an average of 9,732 points, while the RX 7600 scores only 6,398 points. This means that the RTX 4060 Ti is about 52% faster than the RX 7600 in this test. As you can see, according to some leaked generic benchmarks, the RTX 4060 Ti beats the RX 7600 in most scenarios, with up to 63% higher performance in speedway. However, the RX 7600 is slightly faster than the RTX 4060 Ti in Fire Strike Ultra. The performance gap may vary depending on the game and the driver optimization. We will have to wait for some real-world gaming benchmarks to see how these cards perform in actual games and how they compare to their predecessors and competitors.